My name is Edmond Gilmore, and this is Coffee Talk.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kim Perlak. I'm the chair of the guitar department at Berklee College of Music, and welcome to another Coffee Talk. As usual, we are joined by our assistant chair, Cheryl Bailey. Hey, Cheryl.
Hey everybody, it's afternoon, but I'm definitely hitting the caffeine.
Our senior coordinator is also here as usual. Hey, Ben Cody. How are you?
Hello.
Hi, how you
And
doing, guys?
and you're hearing the voice of our special guest today, Edmond Gilmore, great bass player, frequent guest of us in the guitar department and the bass department at Berklee. So, hey, Edmond, how are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Thank you for asking. I'm not with a coffee though. I have to say, I'm with water.
See,
Is it
this is
terrible?
no, I don't think so. Like, I think, yeah, Cheryl's double fisting it. I think that hydration comes up a lot, and I mean that really is the first question that we ask everybody. Like, do you have a coffee routine? Do you not drink coffee? Like, what's your coffee relationship?
I play with Mike Stern. If you don't drink coffee, you cannot play with Mike Stern.
That's a very
So,
good point. Yeah.
absolutely. And you know how much he likes coffee.
Yeah. And is it like the espresso like they make in the house?
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
So that's how Edmund and I met at Mike's apartment in the summer
That's
when
correct.
you guys were rehearsing in the room, and Lainey and
Right,
I were playing in the living room outside. That's how we
right.
met. Yeah.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah, so I am familiar, and Cheryl is familiar with a lot of coffee flowing out of that little kitchen in that in that place. Edmund, when you are like when you're touring and when you're traveling, do you have a really good sense? I mean, do you have a balance in terms of like, okay, you want to be caffeinated, but you're also you're hydrating and you're taking care
Right,
of
right.
yourself. Like, how do you think about with all the travel you do, how do you think about taking good care of yourself?
Um, to be honest, the first thing is I'm trying to eat as healthy as possible, which is a lot of times pretty much impossible. But that's the first thing I'm trying to take care of before everything else. Try to feed myself as healthy as possible, not to eat much, uh, because food can be heavy on you, and I have to drink a lot of coffee. We actually just did a tour in Europe in the end of October through November, and you travel from one country to another, and you sleep 3 hours at night sometimes, and then you have to come to the next country, and you have to perform, and you have to bring your best to the stage. So it's a challenge, but again, eat as less as you can. I'm trying to do what Mike does. He does that the same. We try not to eat as much and drink coffee, a lot of coffee.
Edmund, are you talking about intermittent fasting?
You know what? It's funny you asked it because I do that naturally. Um, I actually started doing it recently, for health reason and to feel better. So yes, I do that, and even when I'm on the road, it's more of like eating like something really small. Keep it very, very, very light, and definitely not eat before a show because that could end up bad. I think it's a good advice. And when the show is over, you just eat something and you move on to the next day. So yeah,
You
but
know,
yeah,
it's interesting that you say that because, when you're traveling, sometimes you're in a little tin can in the sky or on the, road, and you're not moving your body, your digestive system and stuff. So,
right,
and you have nothing, or if you're in an airplane, it's compressed, you have the air
right,
compression. And so, I mean, I read a lot of longevity people that are saying, especially as we get older, our metabolism just naturally slows down. So if you need to eat for your metabolism, right? Like you're not going to use a lot sitting in that train or the bus.
Right.
You're going to use it a lot when you get on stage for sure,
Right.
but compared to like, a normal day in New York, you're not burning the same energy.
Exactly. 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 That's so true. I think, um, you know, witnessing a lot of musicians traveling with me, and sometimes when you're on the road, even sometimes we would take a short trip to from New York to Pennsylvania, and that's like a 4 hours travel. And they stop in every gas station and they buy snacks and stuff like that. I just bring with me dates and walnuts, and trying to eat like 2 3 every couple of hours, just not to you know overload myself with anything heavy. But then again, it depends in the situation. Like if we have the day off before, like we did in Paris, we just got there, we have the whole day, and me and Dennis Chambers went to have a really nice dinner at night. So yeah, so eating healthy is a key to a longevity for sure, and to perform better, and because I know people, they get to a place and they're like getting hungry and they just need to stuff something, and they just eat anything they have on the table.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen that too. Sometimes people they eat fast food, or maybe some people when they're on the road, they're not used to a local food. Like if you're in, another country, and they'll go to
Right.
McDonald's, and I'm always
Oh,
like, I don't know. I mean, this is my personal preference. I wouldn't eat that at home, but
for sure.
but they feel like they know what they're going to get.
Right.
But I always said this thing about if you're in the middle of nowhere, go to a Chinese restaurant and order steamed vegetables and
Yeah.
tofu. Like you can't go wrong. There's not going to be weird oil in it. It's just veggies and tofu, and you can always find that.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. That's you're trying to aim for anything that is the healthiest you can find, or less damaging food as you can find. You know what I mean? Because um, it's so important. I cannot say enough how important it is. And even for like, not even if we're musicians on the road, especially like, even if you travel, as a tourist, I'm trying not to come close to garbage and processed food and stuff like that. But us as musician, and especially, I played classical music in my life, so when we travel with the orchestra and stuff like that, I really tried. I mean, there were times that I ate some garbage, when I was younger, and I could do it. My body could take it. Hey, you could have McDonald's and you're going to be like, wow, let's go on the stage. We're going to just do that. No problem. But, the older we get, you got to treat your body with more respect. And yeah, food is a key, definitely.
You just brought up something that I've been thinking about since you agreed to join us, which is that you've played at the highest levels of classical music and jazz and new music, and played upright as well as electric. And I'm wondering if you would spend a little time talking about like what are the different skill sets, and what are the things that you find, maybe a couple things you find in common between each of those really different musical styles.
Well, it's, I'm going to start with what's in common with them.
Okay.
Like, when you want to get to greatness, you have to put everything you have. You know, like if you want to become the best jazz musician, or if you want to become the greatest rock shredder, or classical musician, or country music. My brother is a guitar player. His name is Gilbert. He actually also lives here in New York for like 32 years or something. Time flies. Anyway, so he started getting into country music, like the hardcore, authentic, and he's putting his heart in it now. Because you have to, when you want to go deep into a music, and especially professional musicians, they go through a path of very disciplined um, practicing. You have to have a certain life. You have to have a certain agenda. So that's in common for me to any type of music. When I was a kid, all right, let's take me for example. When I was a kid, I was crazy about slapping the bass, and that's all I did. And back then, I'm talking about 36 years ago. Oh, it's time flies.
Yeah.
So I had I was playing my music through vinyl records, and you remember there was two speeds, 33 and 45. And when you hit 45, it would jump a perfect fourth, from if you would play on C, so it would play on F. So that's what I would do. I would just play all day long. And when I felt like I can do it even faster, I would just spit it up and play, the string above and just do that. So I would end up playing 12 hours, and I try to get as good as I can. So yeah, if you want to be great, you have to really practice no matter what kind of music you do. So that's a very important point that I felt I should emphasize. Now, classical world, it's a different world. In jazz, we learn a language, right? We learn bebop, and then we learn more of the modern jazz, the modal jazz, like Miles in his later years. And then you go to maybe fusion, and you go to the Michael Brecker language. So you learn a language, you learn phrases. It's like me, I learned Portuguese now because my wife, she's Brazilian. So you learn sentences, and then you can say whatever you want. In classical music, I find it a little bit more cruel because, you play classical music, so it's not good enough just to play it good. It depends if you really understand the music, if you do analysis of how it's built and how you approach each phrase. So I remember me struggling with getting into the classical music. It was hard because I would play with the jazz department back then when I was in Jerusalem music school. And I would play, with the teachers there. I was really fortunate to play with all the teachers. It was really nice. So we played a lot of bebop and standards and whatnot. And then the day after, I would play, symphonies and sonatas, and it's a different approach. All of a sudden, the teachers, he talks to you about phrases. You should, the way you play that note when you go to that phrase, and you need to, the articulation, and of course you got everything in jazz, but I think it's a much more disciplined approach when it comes to expressing yourself after you absolutely completed all your task as far as practicing, playing everything perfect, and now you need to learn how to really play it. You know what I mean? So that's how I see them different. With jazz, it's just, you're going to jam with people. You're going to get better. It's like, when I got to New York, I started playing with Mike. And, he said, you should maybe work on this and work on that. And, it was in my pocket already, so I could just go with the flow. But in classical music, you really got to know what you're doing,
Do you feel like one has influenced the other as well in your playing or your perception of your practice?
Absolutely. And you know what? It's a great question because I sound like ChatGPT. This is a great question.
No, I like it. That's good. I mean, everybody wants to be validated,
Exactly, right.
That's good.
So I'll start with your question by telling you what I'm doing with my students. So I have some students who likes to play just for fun, and they come to me in advance. They say, look, we're not going to be pro like you. I'm just going with the flow. But my professional students who wants to, go higher, first thing I do is I start with Bach, because I think if you want to become a really great jazz musician, like if you take Chick Corea, Keith Jarrett, Herbie Hancock, all these guys, especially I think Chick and Keith Jarrett, they both had a foot in jazz and foot in classical music 100%, because I play, I have a few videos on YouTube of me playing the G minor presto violin sonata, and I have the B minor double presto. I like the fast movements, it's a challenge, and it sounds like jazz, like you can take a whole, I just have a student actually, I taught him the G minor sonata, and he said, hey, I can actually play that on F blues. I said, bingo, so sure, you can live your life without playing classical music and just play jazz, but I think it wouldn't go that deep, and you wouldn't understand music as good as you would if you learn classical music. So I think it's ultra important to learn classical music for any kind of music.
Edmond, that's amazing because that G minor, I practice that every day. I would never perform it for anyone ever. But you know why I love that one, but many of them, is also you have to be really relaxed to play it. Right? So I always put that at the kind of the end of my practice day. I mean, once you work out the fingerings and you can play through it, I try to put it at the end because it really centers me, because all those this skipping of the strings and just there.
Right.
Anyway, I think also just for that level of the technique, but yes, it does apply to the jazz. So I'm glad there are more fans of the presto.
Absolutely. It's so beautiful. I mean, that alone, and if you remember, there's in the end, you can just put it on a 2/5, and it sounds incredible. I remember I just got into a music store, Sam Ash, a few years ago. I was working on the B minor, the double presto movement. And this guy says, wow, is that Charlie Parker? This guy came to me, and I said, no, it's actually Bach. He says, really? Wow, it sounds like jazz. I said, it is jazz, actually, when you think about it. It's the roots. So I love classical. Listen, I have some, I was just like, I just got here from Israel a week before the unfortunate war started. But I have a friend who's playing in the Israeli Symphonic Orchestra, and he sends me gifts every time. He says, bro, I have tickets for you for tonight. Come over. So, I went, and they played Rachmaninoff, and they played Tchaikovsky. And wow, I can't believe I have a blackout. They had something else. And I just got into a 3-4 days of listening only to classical music. I just got sucked in that world again. And I can just be in that zone for like few days without listening to anything else but classical music. And I look for different performances of that, I remember I had some time. I played opera also with the Israeli opera, and I remember I started listening to Maria Callas, and I looked for other singers to compare performances, and I found, I will tell you something about myself. When I listen to music, any kind of music, I'm trying to get to the microscopic resolution of things. So it doesn't have to be the best performance, but it has to be somebody who has something to say in classical music. So for me, Bach, it's an endless, thank God it's an endless thing to do, thank God.
Yeah, and I think also if you're playing it bowed or plucked, like it's totally different.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what I think is so cool, is that the things like in these prestos or in the chaconne or in the things that are fast on a bowed instrument are much more challenging on our instrument. And the things that are arpeggiated, it flips, like everything flips.
Yeah.
And I find that really fascinating.
Yeah. They have advantages. Look, I played a German bow, and I played.
I was going to ask you about your bowing next. Yeah,
I thought you were going to ask me that. So yeah, I played a German bow, and some stuff. I remember I played a Van Schoens. It's like a Dutch composer. He wrote some modern company. And you kind of play the bow, and it's more of a bounce. It's not. You have to use the way. I haven't played bow for a long time. I hate to see it kind of ditch the upright for too long. But anyway, when I was in my top shape, I remember I felt like my hand is like floating. And if I would try to play something like that on the electric bass, forget it. I would need like 2 months of practice to just even try to play. Not that I didn't put the time on the upright, but yeah. It's
What do you think? Like, there's just such a huge physicality in that, especially
yeah.
I think German bow. Like, how does that? What did that teach you about the way you play when you play electric bass with your fingers? Did it teach you something about the way your shoulders and your arms and your hands work together?
In the electric bass, most of the time I was self-taught. I had teachers. Unfortunately, I kind of always felt that they want to teach me stuff that they want to work on. So I had to, most of the time, teach myself, and with classical, you cannot get away with bullshit. So I'm sorry.
No, okay. We've heard worse. We've heard worse. Yeah.
So you can get away with teaching students like stuff maybe you want to practice on. I've heard a few friends of mine who were teaching. It's like, yeah, I was working with my students. We played Conception, and it was, yeah, I could finally work on that. And he was just comping for me for like 20 minutes and all that stuff. But with classical, I mean, I remember my teacher, Michael Klinghoffer, who was a teacher for a lot of known upright players. The first thing we talked was like how you stand, not to put too much pressure on the right side, because a lot of upright players, classical upright players, put a lot of weight on the right side because you're kind of leaning towards the right side, and then you end up with a lot of back problems and maybe like a hip problem. So that's the first thing we talked about, and he was an amazing teacher, teaching me like how to hold the bow and just fly with it and not to use any weight. The electric, I had to find out the truth about myself because, and that's what I work with my students all the time. Like if I see them like, the wrist is too bent, too, curved. By the way, sorry if my English is not perfect.
No, it's great. Great.
So, I work with them that everything would be easy. The great Gary Carr, legendary upright player, classical, he says, just think that it's easy. And for that, everything needs to be relaxed. Just like Cheryl said, when she's going to the G minor sonata, she comes to that in the end when she's relaxed, right? Which is a very good approach. So in the electric bass, unfortunately, not a lot of people are educated. And it's a good point, which you just said, that it's ultra important to think about, being loose. I'm sure you guys at Berkeley, they're working with your students about everything, which is super important.
Well, that I'm not surprised in seeing you play about this, because this is what I always say to anybody that asks. The unifying principle of virtuosity is relaxation, and you'll never see any virtuoso that is not relaxed. And I always say this is the best thing about YouTube is that if there's something that you watch over and over and just love this performance, watch it with the sound down and watch the body. But I also always give an example of back from the 55 bar days of this, I would call it the Stern pilgrimage. At least once a year, to sit at that one bar stool, bring your earplugs for sure, and sit there and just watch and feel Mike play. Because when he gets in, he can double try, and he can go as fast as him. And he does a funny thing with his legs, but I think that's more like a pressure cooker. It's taking the pressure off his upper body. Is total relaxation, and that's how he can just go, and he can just rev it up, and he's just smiling, right? But also watching you play with him at the regatta bar, that was some of the most, I would just say flat out, some of the most stunning electric bass and slap that I've ever seen, and your ease. That kind of takes it to the next level, because when I'm watching you play at that level, and you're smiling and you have that sense of relaxation. So anything that you could give advice or just talk about that more, like how I mean, I'll just say for myself, I'm always telling people to do an inventory of where they feel the tension, because it could be mental tension, like I don't know the changes, I don't know
Right.
it could be emotional tension, maybe something happened in your life or it's just the actual physical barrier that you physically need to get to a place where you're relaxed with. So I'm gonna pop some popcorn and sit up here and listen to what you have to say about this.
So, the first thing I would do is learn the music inside out. That's a given. Like, if you really want to feel relaxed, you need to make sure you play that stuff not just by muscle memory. For instance, again, I go back to the G minor sonata. I can play it really fast, okay? But it's harder to play it. Da dee da da dee da da dee da da dee da da dee. Cannot go that low. Anyway, and then play through the whole piece and remember where you need to go. And you know what? There is a say in Hebrew, I have learned from all my teachers, and it could be students. And I remember I was showing my students, like many years ago when I started playing that a lot. And I showed that to my students, and I needed to slow down, and I realized I cannot do that. I'm like, oh, you know what? Let me just reset quickly and see what I did with. And I realized it was a muscle memory. And I said, okay, let's go back to the homework and slow down. So, I think it was Jeff Berlin who said that the slower you play, the faster you're going to feed your brain. Sorry. The slower you're going to play, the faster you're going to feed your brain, and it's going to make you more focused, and you're going to be very sure about the steps you're walking. You know the path, you know where it goes. Plus, it will teach you the harmony, like, especially like music like, Mozart, Bach, every solo of that stuff that they do. You really got to know where you're going. If I've seen that on classical music stages, that people learn stuff by muscle memory, and they were nervous, and it's like, and they messed up the whole thing. And it was a train wreck. I played with, it was my most challenging project I've ever done in my life, playing with Steve Reich. And Steve Reich, I played his piece called You Are. I had 5 music stands in the concert. You have to know when to say concert in the show. That's a concert.
That's right.
We played, right?
Yeah.
So I had 5 music stands because it was one note every time that was changing once in like 100 bars. But each bar was a different time signature, right? So one bar was 13/8, and the other one was 6/4, and the other one was 3/8, and then 2/4. And so you have to forget you have a bar line. You just have to read the music. Now I had 5 music stands, and if you lose your focus, and I was the only upright player, it was amazing ensemble. It was 2 grand pianos, 2 vibraphone, 2 xylophones, octet of string players, and a choir. We listen, and then you are the only bass player, and I do like dum 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 dum. And if you lose one bar, you're dead, and you screwing up everybody around you. All right. So when I learned that music, as for your question, Cheryl, what I did is I spread the music over 2 tables. I had back then like a setup in my home. I just spread the music. It was a long, long, long sheet of music, and I just read it, not even playing it. For like 2 weeks, I just looked at it because I was terrified missing one bar. And then when I got to the concert, I was about to say a gig, and I just playing, and I had to start here, and there's no time to flip the page. So I just started here, and slowly, my angle got like this and like that. And in the end of the concert, I was here. It was funny. Like the crowd kind of smiled. I could see, and like kind of giggled a little bit when I kept, moving, but I knew the stuff dead. I knew it perfect. And everything I learn, I do it slow as hell. And that's the key. That's the key. I think.
It's funny. We just had Yaron Israel, the percussion chair, on here, and we had the same exact conversation. So I would say to all our listeners, what is that telling you? If you're hearing this for at least the second time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and from the drummers and the bass players, everybody, like, and all the readers among us,
Kim, I'm sorry though, but so that what you're talking about is the mental tension, right? So what about the physical tension? Because I'm on this thought that tempo is physical, and so you can only play as fast as you can really feel it. So do you have any? I would love what you think about
physical?
that. Yeah, like how you break through those physical barriers of that. There's a number on that metronome where you start to feel it somewhere, and then it spirals from there. So I'm curious your thoughts on that.
It's in such a psychological level, for real. I that's what I feel like. I remember me starting getting into fast tempos, like you just mentioned. Like I started cranking the metronome. I wanted to play giant steps in 340. And you think it's hard. It's not really hard. It's just you're not used to that. So it's so much mental. Look, if the hand moves in a certain speed at some point, that doesn't mean that your muscle got faster. It means your brain is capable of relax. And when you relax, you can do, what? I'll tell you that, when I did my master's audition, at the end of the year in school, and I remember I got into the room with a piano player. I said to her, when I played classical music, it was a Bogatyryov piece. It's a Russian composer, modern, and it was, a lot of skips. And, it's upright. You have to hit every note. And I told her, let's go into the room, and I want to feel the acoustics. Because, I was, you're stressed, your body's tight, right? And when you're tight, your hand is shaking, and especially when you play the bow, you got an unwanted vibrato, So I started feeling the room, and I felt good about it. And I said, yeah, wow. And we started playing, and I think that was probably the first time in my life, I was 28 back then, that I got into the room and I played a classical modern music that I practiced a lot, but not something, special. But I practiced it, and I felt the room, and the acoustic was great. And I was like, yeah, everything is possible. And I played it very easy. So I think you cannot disconnect from the one from the other. If you're relaxed physically, that doesn't mean you necessarily if you're relaxed emotionally, your body is going to be loose. If you're stressed, oh, where am I supposed to play? Maybe I'll forget it. Oh, maybe I'll miss a note. Then boom, you're in a black hole. So, but if you know the music, like for me, I know I can grab the bass and just play anything like that I know already. Let's say Mike will say to me, let's play 26-2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we play even faster. It doesn't. I know the music, and I'm relaxed. And of course, there's an element of a new thing that you like stress. Everybody gets stressed. Listen, everybody gets stressed. I don't know somebody who doesn't go on stage, and I've seen it with everybody. Everybody I know is come to me, man, I'm stressed. I saw Victor coming to the show at a Regatta Bar, and I said, oh my God, I'm in trouble. And then he said, oh man, come on, you're going to be great. And I said, thanks, bro. And, of course, and then we start playing. And, you just feel the music. I played it like a million times. And, when slap is my thing, people know me for being a slapper. And I played for him, in my mind, it's like, I want to do it for Victor, and I did it like, I kind of marked to him, I did like this for you. and he did this, so, and at some point you got to get used to it. So it's an experience, and it's an emotional thing. To summarize everything, it's you have to have the experience, you have to have the mileage, and you have to know the music, and then the physical will come after the mental is set. It's very important. Yeah.
I mean, for you, I think it obviously also goes into the non-musical, because I mean, when we were at the Regatta Bar and your bass stopped working, like I want everyone listening to know that it just stopped. Like
Yeah,
it had
yeah.
been literally working all day and then no sound came out. And the place is filling up, and Cheryl is running to try to find a bass.
Right.
And you and I are standing there on the stage, and I'm standing there, and there's people now, they're gonna help out, and then there's all this
Right.
chaos all around you. And you're sitting there on your chair like, you're waiting for a
Yeah.
drink to come or something, and then you're like literally unscrewing parts of your bass,
Right.
trying different things.
To figure it out. Yeah.
When the bass came, you looked at it and you were like, "This is great. Can I put different strings on it?" And you were doing that during the thing,
The
like
solo, yeah.
during someone else's solo.
Yeah, my
You
solo.
were Yeah, you were like, I have time, and I think that kind of calm under pressure, and not at one time did you stop being like totally personable, like super kind. People from the audience now are like, bro, there's a bass on my wall, and you're like, that is so nice, and you're like, what's your name? Like you're not stressed, like you're signing autographs for people, like it was. So I think like, is that over time just an extension of this? Like you're just, what it is that you're doing, and you feel like, okay, like this is a manageable situation. Is that come over time for you, or do you feel like there's a part of your personality that always kind of felt like that?
No, not always. Definitely not always. I wish I could say yes. I wish I could say, yeah, I was born cool, but I'm not. I mean, um, being there, they say, they're getting you a new bass. Don't worry. And I'm like, you know, what? I even go back to the thing we just talked about, being relaxed. Is when you really know how to play, it doesn't matter. They can bring me a broomsticks with wires on it, and if it's I can put it in the amp and like plug it to the amp and play. I'll do it. Whatever I can do. By the way, when I played with Mike at Berkeley, like, what was it, 2021, and I played one of your guys' bass, and he had like a weird bass, and the action was like super high, and I just play that. Because, especially when you play opera, the strings are really, really high, and it's very physical. So I think eventually when you learn to play, you're feeling more relaxed. Of course, I would feel a lot more comfortable in my instrument, my action, my setup. But I think because, first of all, you guys were so kind, and you were running around trying to get me a bass. And that guy told me, hey, I have a bass in my car. And I said, what else can I do? I can just wait and see. And excuse me, sorry. So I really felt good. If I would be like probably in, I don't know, playing in a bar in Nebraska, and there was nobody there who could help me, I would say, shit, that's a problem. But I was in Boston, like we're surrounded by musicians, and I kind of knew it was okay. And I just hope not to get, like a really crazy, messy bass. But luckily, I'm sorry, I forgot the guy's name. He's teaching in your school. He was so kind.
Greg Ryan.
Greg Ryan.
Great shout out to Greg Ryan.
Shout out to Greg Ryan. He brought me his jazz bass. And boy, oh boy, you know what? And the following couple of weeks, we went to that tour in Europe. I brought with me a spare electronics to my guitar, just in case this stuff is gonna happen again, So, but yeah, I stayed relaxed because I felt, I'm among friends and everybody's trying to help. And what else can I do? it happened. There's not much I could do. I mean, about that stuff. I have worse examples, by the way. You want to hear about it? Oh my God! I'm gonna be so bad. Listen, this is funny and kind of, I played with the Israeli Symphonic Orchestra, and the house where they played, the orchestra's house. The conductor was Zubin Mehta, not more, not less. And at that time, I live, my apartment in Israel is like maybe 10 minutes walking from there. No, 15 minutes walking from there. And we had a rehearsal with Zubin Mehta. And there was back then a construction for the parking. And I'll try to do it as fast as possible. And I said, okay, I'm going to go there an hour before with my car to find a parking. And I couldn't find parking for an hour and a half. And I got late to the rehearsal, and Mr. Zubin Mehta looked at me pissed. And I'm like, God. The day after, and he said to me, "You're late." And I said, "I'm so sorry, maestro. I mean, what can I do? You have no parking, and they don't allow me to use the orchestra's upright. They want me to bring my own." And I'm like, okay. The day after, I went 2 hours in advance because, you have to put the upright in the car. You cannot just drag it on the street. And I got late 15 minutes. I swear to you. And he got pissed at me, and he marked me. And for 1 second, I flipped the bow. I did a down bow instead of up bow. And he said, you're not playing in this symphony. It was a concerto for trumpet of Haydn. Haydn trumpet concerto. He said, "You're not going to play on this one. Sorry, get out." And I said, okay. And that was cool. And then, I came to him and said, "Maestro, I'm really sorry, but my hands are tight. I came 2 hours in advance," and he didn't care. You know what? He's right. He's right. You got to get in time, right? But my hands were really tight. And then he said, "Okay, you're not going to play on this." I said, "Okay." And then he felt that the orchestra, he needs a little bit more thickness. And he says, "Come back and you play with him." I'm talking the day after. I said, "No, you didn't let me rehearse. I'm not playing on this one." And everybody was like, "Oh!" And I said, "I'm sorry. I'm practicing and I'm playing. And if he doesn't allow me to practice," and I was kind of like, a rebellion. But I really felt like I need to, work with them because, there was a lot of bowing thing to do, up bow, down bow, for the people who doesn't know about the classical world. Everybody needs to be in sync, when you play down bow or up bow, all that stuff. I mean, down bow, up bow. And I felt like I need more practice. And I said, "I'm sorry, I don't feel ready. I'm not going to do that." And everybody was shocked. They're like, "How do you dare to say that to the great Zubin?" And I said, "I'm sorry. I'm a professional. That's what I do." So that's my bad side.
Yes, being that responsible, that is terrible. That is terrible.
I know, right?
I love that. I like that.
It's a great story, isn't it?
It's great. I love it. Now, there's a question that Ben asks everyone, and I think this is a good time. Yeah, see if you can stand up to Maestro Zubin Mehta, but can you answer this question? All right, go ahead.
All right, so what is a question that you think Berklee students should be asking that they're not thinking of?
Are you sure you want to ask that question? No, I'm kidding. What kind of question they should ask? Wow, it's. I need to be honest in a painful level. They need to ask their teacher, "Do you think I stand a chance to become a professional musician?" In case we're talking about somebody who comes there in full attention, because, not everybody can do that, So I think that's a question they need to ask their teacher. "Do you think I'm good enough to survive in this world?" Because it's not about even your musicality or your skills or your talent necessarily. I have a good friend. He was Mike's student. The guy was a genius, played unbelievable, but his skills socially were problematic. He was always serious, always smiling. And when you come to a gig, I say, "Yeah, bro, hey, let's play, let's jam." And I said, "Look, man, I don't want to mention his name, but he's a sweetheart. We're still very good friends." And he said, "Oh, do you think I have a chance being a musician?" I said, "Look, unless you can hook up with musicians and be nice, it's not just how you play. You got to be nice. People needs to feel comfortable with you. So on one point, you got to be honest with yourself and ask yourself, am I good enough? Am I built for this world to be a musician? Because you need to have a certain personality. It shows you that you really need sometimes to question yourself and to know if you're capable of doing something, either if it's socially or it's musically, but you have to have them both. So you need to face the truth with your teacher or Berkeley, or any music school, by the way, any music school. It's not just Berkeley. Any music school you go, any teacher you have to tell him, like, am I good enough? If I have a chance, yeah.
There's so much. I mean, we could have a whole pot of coffee, but this one is like coming to unfortunately coming to a bit of an end. But Cheryl, I want to know what's on your mind as we're kind of wrapping it up.
Well, thanks for taking the time to be with us, and really, you laid some really deep wisdom about how to develop technique and musicianship, and well, as Kim often says, luck favors the prepared.
I like that.
So thanks for it's like I said, it's just funny because it came up as a big theme in our last episode. So I'm like, well, maybe this will be the theme for this season. It's great. We're going to dig in with this.
Oh, wow.
I love that. And my teacher who told me that he was a Segovia student and he's still with us,
wow.
Phil DeFirmery. So I think he'd love it if the season was called Luck Favors the Prepared. Ben, what about you? A final thought?
Yeah, no, I always enjoy that, doing all these podcasts that we have guests, from all different musical backgrounds, but it seems to always kind of come back to the same theme, and I promise we're not doing that on purpose. We don't have some sort of we're not meeting in advance and saying it really goes to show that it's about putting the time in, being prepared, and working on your craft.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what you guys are doing in Berkeley, I was almost I became a student in Berkeley when I was 19.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't have the bread back then to do that move, but I got a scholarship, even partial scholarship. I think it was like 50%. Was really nice. And I think this greenhouse that's called Berkeley, this institution, this historical institution that so many great musicians came out from, is amazing, really. I mean, what you guys do for musicians is second to none, really. I love it, and I really enjoy being there with Mike and play for the students and see like what's going on. I think I have even a couple of students there. My former student's a guitar player and a bass player, a female bass player, and you know what? It's really always great to see them going to Berkeley and come back different in a very good way. It's beautiful. So you guys just keep doing what you're doing. I don't have to tell you that, that's for sure, but it's always great and pleasure talking to you guys and be at Berkeley. It was my second time there with Mike, and I really, really enjoy that. You guys are amazing, really.
Well, we're honored that you came to the guitar department, and it won't be your last time with us.
I would be honored.
So everybody, we're going to keep hanging out. But thank you for listening. And thank you, Cheryl Bailey. Thank you, Edmond Gilmore. Thank you, Ben, Cody. And to everybody else, thank you for listening, and we'll be with you on the next Coffee Talk.
Goodbye, everybody.